On this episode of Deleted WrestleZone, we're going to do a quick review on WrestleMania 36. We're going to talk about what worked, what didn't, what great matches they had, and whatnot didn't work, felt awkward, the whole enchilada. So, let's get started with Deleted WrestleZone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everybody, what's up? Hope everybody had a great time watching WrestleMania 36. If you must know, I actually subscribed to the network, but they only had that thing where you have it free for a month and then you have to start paying it. Well, I'm gonna unsubscribe because I just wanted to see WrestleMania, and that's what I did. But luckily for me, having a network, I get to watch some of the old WCW Nitro, this WCW events, and all this other stuff. And also thinking about watching that Evolve event that took place at Fighter Fest the same day. No, Fight for the Fallen that same day, just to see what was the fuzz about. But I may put that as a throwback wrestling event, some down the line, and see how it goes. But right now, let's talk about WrestleMania. Now, I know people were talking about there were many scenarios that were being played about was it going to be canceled? Was it yada yada yada? That's the problem. Like we don't know. The only person that could ever mention that, and that's Vince McMahon. Now, would it been better to postpone it? Maybe, because I know some of you watching at home would want to see it with the crowd, the reaction whenever there's someone winning. That's something that never gets old. The whole thing with the no audience, that's kind of a little difficult because WWE have not experienced all this, but it is what it is. But there were some good matches I did enjoy. Excuse me, something dropped. So, let's talk about the first night. I didn't write down any notes on this because I was lazy today. So, let's talk about the first night. Started out with Cesaro versus Drew Gulag. What about it? What I thought about it? Well, I have been a fan of both of them, but come on. It was a good match, but it didn't give me that response that I wanted because I seen Drew Gulag before on certain events from Evolved and that stuff. But it was good. Not gonna lie about that. But frankly, the Swiss um, Army, whatever the Swiss Cyborg, Cesaro won, which I'm okay with it. Next match. Oh yeah, the women's tag team match. Now, to me, I wasn't too much big on this one because let's go back from about a year ago. If y'all recall, they had the whole thing came about. We had Bailey and Sasha. They were the first ever champions for the tag team, women's tag team. But the one thing that really bugged me is that it was never legitimized the way it should have been. I felt like Sasha and Bailey, but they never utilized the women's tag team division that much because it kind of, how do I say this? Um, it kind of threw us off. Like we didn't see much of them being challenged that much, that much with it. I mean, I know we can say Bailey and Sasha were the first. They wanted to legitimize the whole thing, but we haven't seen Asuka and Kairi Sane try to make a name for it, knowing that they could have done bigger things with those titles, but it was like that. But if you almost know, Kairi Sane had to leave to Japan. She just recently got married to Evil from New Japan. But I have to say, I think hopefully they can legitimize it now with Alexa Bliss and Naked Cross, because this whole thing, I know many fans will wanted this to happen. Have the women's tag team championship to happen, but they need to legitimize more. But I'm happy that Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss won the match. But you guys would agree with me that they should have legitimized the women's tag team division like it should have been from the start. Then we have Elias versus King Corbin. Well, not a fan of Corbin, but Elias, come on, who's who's not a fan of the guy playing guitar every single time? But I enjoyed it. But glad that Elias kicked Corbin's ass where he deserved it. Then we had the Raw's Women Championship match between Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler. To me, I was hyped up for it, but it didn't feel like the championship match that should have been right from the start when this whole feud between Shayna and Becky Lynch happened. I mean, I know you guys would have felt it. I mean, I know some of you were thinking, okay, Shayna Baszler is going to win it. It has to be that way. I mean, I would agree with you on that level because it's what should have been, but it didn't go exactly like we hoped for. It's the same thing we all saw with Asuka a couple years back. But like I said, since the circumstances happened with, you know, for what happened with today with the pandemic crisis, things changed. I mean, do I feel okay with the fact that Becky Lynch is still champion? Well, yes and no. Let me put it that way. But you can't deny whatever decisions they were making. I don't know what was the real purpose. Then we have the match for the Intercontinental Championship match between Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan. This one, I felt it was alright, because you had Daniel Bryan had Drew Gulak by his side. I mean, those two are like a lot alike. But of course, you have Sami Zayn alongside with Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro. But there were some good matches. There were good moments on this match. I like it. But frankly, I was hoping Daniel Bryan won for this title, but no. Sami Zayn won it. I would prefer Daniels because I don't know. I feel like maybe Drew Gulak, since he owns the rights to his the stable faction Catchpoint, I would have imagined him and Daniel Bryan forming a new Catchpoint faction with those two with more people who had the same similarities. I mean, what do you guys think? You tell me if you want to see that. Then we have the ladder match for what was it? The SmackDown Tag Team. Now, I was a bit thrown off on this one due to the fact that we only had one from each team representing. You got Morrison representing him and Miz. What was it? Kingston representing the New Day, and of course Jimmy Uso of the Usos. So, but to be frankly honest, it was a good match. Who isn't a fan of the ladder matches? I mean, I grew up watching the Hardy Boys, but it was a good match between all three um, individuals, and I enjoyed everything whacking each other and all that. But of course, as always, there has to be a winner, and frankly, Morrison picked up the victory for him and his team. I was like, okay, I can live with that for a little bit longer, but because I know they're trying to reestablish the whole Morrison and Miz dynamic duo type of thing, but I'm not gonna complain about it. That's not my dilemma on that. Who do you got here? Okay, we had the no DQ match with Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. Now this one was alright. I mean, the whole feud was so intense. In every moment you see it on Raw or any other pay per view, I like it how um, Seth Rollins disqualified himself because he tried to get away, and Ke- Kevin Owens called him out, saying, "You think you're more man? Disqualify." He looks at him like disqualifying yourself makes you look more like a coward. I mean, frankly, he's not wrong. He wanted to face him in a fair fight because that is what men do when you're fighting, and he proved it. And I'll never forget that moment. I know you guys won't, where he jumped off the sign of WrestleMania and landed on him to pick up the victory. It was like the most craziest moment. I mean, that's a WrestleMania moment that I'm not sure how the reaction would be if we did have live audience right there. But I can say it would have been awesome, you know. But I'm glad that Kevin Owens won this one. But I don't know sure if the feud between those two are going to continue. And then we had Braun Strowman versus Goldberg for the Universal Championship match. Now, I can say this frankly about this. I'm okay with the fact how the whole result ended. Now, the one thing I had a problem with is there's no story build up between Goldberg and Strowman. Now, the reason I say this, like when we see stories in the ring, how there's feuds going on, involving a championship match like this one. We see the build up of the story as we go along, but we didn't see that with Braun Strowman and Goldberg because Roman Reigns was pulled out, and that's one of the things that kind of throws us off because we didn't see it. But at the same time, we got to look back at this. We know for a fact Braun Strowman's should have been champion a long time ago. It's the same situation that happened with Ryback. But I can say I wasn't too fond of the idea. But at the same time, I was like, okay, it's better late than never than they put him as Universal Champion. But they better give him a good run because I know many fans have asked for it. And that's for Goldberg. I mean, I've been a fan of Goldberg since WCW. I mean, I met him once back at when Strike before Strikeforce went out of business. He was there with his wife attending an event, but he was nice to me. I have no issues with Goldberg, but I feel like I don't know. Maybe he would have been better off not having the title that long. I don't know how much time does he still have left in the tank. That's one of the things we need to be more vigilant when we see these type of matches. But Braun Strowman, I say I'll give it a shot, see how it goes, and hopefully they give him some good matches, whoever they're going to face him. And I hope they do build up the character that he is as a champion because we've been asking for this for a while. And I think finally we go to the Boneyard match. Yeah, now we can talk about the Boneyard as much as we want, but it did have features of what happened in what was it? In the Ultimate Deletion. It turns out Jeremy Borash, if you guys remember him, he was in TNA. He did help out with many of Hardy's vignettes. At the same time, he was involved in Hardy's Ultimate Deletion with Bray Wyatt, if you all remember that. And of course, it was there were certain things that looked familiarized from that. Now, what I think about the Boneyard March, I have to say I was pretty much happy to see Undertaker return to the American Badass gimmick. Now, no disrespect with the idea of him being the dead man, but as the American Badass, that was cool. Like it gave a different look because it's kind of like similar what Sting went when back in WCW when he went from that hype surfer flat top type of character to the Crow looking. It's almost similar to Taker, but I'm pretty much happy with the idea of that. But man, it was a good match, and I enjoyed it. You know, and there were some good moments seeing Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows being there, the Druids. But Um, I did like the touch where AJ's hand comes out of the but it was actually a prop with the glove on. That was a good touch, I have to say. I forgot who gave the idea. I don't know if it was AJ who thought or Jeremy Borash, but it was a good match. I enjoyed it. It was like something similar to Ultimate Deletion. Now, do I consider this could be Undertaker's last match? Well, we'll see about that. We're not sure yet, but I'm going to enjoy it. I think I'm gonna rewatch that over and over and over, like any other person would do. I don't know if you guys would do the same thing. Now let's go to day two, Sunday. Uh, we have Liv Morgan versus Natalia. Um, what I thought about that? Well, it was alright. I mean, I love these women. I'm a fan of Natalia since I first saw her with the Hart Dynasty when she teamed up with her now husband and cousin Harry, and of course Liv Morgan. Well, I did like when she was with the Riot Squad as the Harley Quinn type, but it was alright. I give it a pass on this one. Of course, I did enjoy Liv, you know, being the winner for this match. Then we got the NXT Women's Championship match between Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. Now, this was a bit more confusing to me. Now, I was thinking, well, I'm gonna say who the winner is anyway. Charlotte Flair won this match, but to me, there was a part that felt, why? I mean, I get it, but she's not one of those superstars that wasn't having a problem with any of the brands, with SmackDown or Raw, because like any other person, she got all the opportunities that she ever wanted. Why make the jump to NXT? I mean, we know we've seen wrestlers are been happy. There's some that were going back to NXT, like we saw Tyler Breeze, we saw Finn Balor, but why would Charlotte Flair would go back to NXT? I mean, she's doing okay for herself in both Raw and SmackDown, but that was the confusing part for me. As for Rhea Ripley, I would prefer her to win because she has to carry the division back. Now, I do recall this when Charlotte Flair was involved with NXT. I know Triple H felt that many of the good wrestlers that he had, like maybe Charlotte, was one of them that redefined it. But we'll just got to wait and see what happened. Like I said, I'm not too fond of it, but it is what it is. What's the next match after that? Aleister Black versus Bobby Lashley. Oh, I have to say, I like the kicks that Aleister Black does. The Black Mass. I like the one where he really whipped Bobby Lashley's ass on this one. Not because he's Aleister Black. It's like good intensity, and I like how the reaction when Bobby Lashley lost to Aleister Black, and Lana's like, can't believe it. Like she thought, oh, he's dominant, But Aleister Black, he's beyond anything. I mean, who isn't a fan of Aleister Black? I know I am. I love his theme song that he uses. It kind of reminds me like one of those new metal type bands. I'm not sure. Then we have, oh yes, this one's my favorite one of the night. Otis versus Dolph Ziggler. Now, this became like a real Beauty and the Beast type of story, if you recall. Let's go back how this whole thing started. Otis has been hanging out with Manny since last December. Dolph Ziggler did not like it, and then on Valentine's Day, well, Ziggler saved Mandy twice. One when she got thrown off turnbuckle, and then saved her at the Royal Rumble, and she landed right on top of him. And then we see on Valentine's Day what happened, that something was going on. And then that's when the hacker, whoever he is, showed up like the last SmackDown before WrestleMania, revealed that Sonya Deville and Dolph Ziggler set the whole thing up in motion. And much of this match, it felt like Otis didn't have a chance until Mandy Rose showed up, slapped Sonya Deville, which people can say, or should I say, I do say it, the slap heard around the world. Japan, and she was smart enough to send Sonya through the ring, and the ref distracted, and of course, low blowed Dolph Ziggler. And of course, I saw this on Twitter. She put, "You deserve that," and allowing for Otis to pick up the win. And of course, he walked out with the girl. Like any hero, he wins the match, he wins the war, and he gets the girl. You should have seen this on Twitter, how everybody were responding. I'm like, wow, it was a good story. And of course, the ending part where they go celebrate getting some steaks. That was, I know. Uh, Next match on this one. Ooh, yes, this one I have to say also one of my favorite matches. This one was like the most brutal match I have ever seen between Edge and Randy Orton. I mean, to me, I've always this match went longer up to 36 minutes. That's like one of the longest matches I've ever seen. Kind of reminds me of the New Japan feel as always. But every moment I'm like thinking, dang, oh, how's this gonna end? Who's gonna have the most beating? Who's not gonna be able to stand up from being tossed to a wall through a metal area? All of that kind of gets me going with it. But I think my favorite moment of that match is when Edge speared Orton, but at the same time he did like a little submission, put him to sleep, and he told the ref stop counting, and that's when he put him in the concerto. You know, the double. I think he was like looking at it like, how do I say this? Like, I'm sorry, I love you, but bam. Like Randy Orton didn't have no remorse for what he did to him, but Edge felt like he was being remorse. That's something you gotta look in every story. The good guy does not want to pull the trigger, but he had to. It's the same thing what we saw with Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, where Rick told him not to hold back, but he did it anyway. He told him not to hold back, but Shawn had no other choice. It's the same kind of feel, he knew he had to pull the trigger, and he had no other choice. And I was like, dang, that's a good match. I say that one is one of the best ones of the night. Then we had the Raw Tag Team Championship between Street Profits and Angel Garza and Austin Theory. Now, for sure, I know there was no way it was gonna happen because you bring in a guy from the NXT at the last minute, it doesn't work because you build up the story, and that's the same thing we thought with Braun Strowman, but I wasn't sure exactly, but victory went to Street Profits, and when the match was over, both Theory and Garza tried to take down both. Selena Vega tried a super kick. I forgot who it was. Montes, I think. And then here comes Bianca Belair and whips her ass. And that was the last thing I think Selena thought it was going to happen. Now, what does this mean with Bianca Belair? Does it mean that she's going to be now with the Raw roster? We're not sure. I mean, thing is this: we've seen many of the some NXT stars that never won championships, but they still made it. But I felt, in my opinion, they should have given her the belt to give her more recognition, but it didn't happen. But it's still too early to tell if she's going to Raw. But we'll just wait and see on that one. Um, what's the and then we got the Firefly Funhouse. Um, I have to say some parts were funny, like it take you back to old school. Like who hasn't forgotten about John Cena's old look? You guys remember that old look that he had? And then he went to the Thugonomics, the NWO type of thing. It was like It was like Bizarre, and if you saw that McMahon puppet with the devil horns, that was Vince's idea. It worked perfectly. I mean, and it was great. Uh, but of course, the Fiend won. But my favorite moment after that match was what's his name? Um, what was his name? Oh yeah, Titus O'Neil. He's like still doesn't know what to make of it. He's like, I don't know what I just saw, but it was just too funny. What else? Okay, the final match was Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE World Title. First of all, not a fan of Brock Lesnar after he doesn't show up that much, but I was hoping for Drew McIntyre to win because I like the idea of him being that guy who's worked real hard to get to the top, and of course, you got a guy like Brock Lesnar who doesn't care; he just wants to be dominant, and I like how it ended with Drew McIntyre finally fulfilling his destiny. He's now the champion. And that's how it ended. Oh yeah, and I forgot during one of the intermissions of the matches, uh, the Gronk, the guy who played with that football player who's now signed with WWE, he's the new 24/7 champion. Kind of weird that happened, but it's a lot of fun. We just got to wait and see where they're gonna go with it. So, what did I thought about WrestleMania? Now, I'm not gonna rate this one because I feel like the whole thing with the no audience is still new and more like we're still at uncharted waters. Now, I did like to AEW. I like how they did their last Dynamite with no audience, or should I say, they just used the wrestlers involved in that because it kind of kept them 6 feet apart, and that worked. And I like the one they did for Wrestle Talk. Um, it kind of worked for them. I think it's because the area was too big and it didn't look like a smaller venue that has no audience. But hopefully, with this whole thing, what happened right now this year with the whole crisis with the pandemic, can teach WWE and other promotions they can try to learn how to deal with this whole thing, but give out a good show with no audience. Try to make it more okay. We can have fans there, but try to do something different. But hopefully, this could bring them a lesson out. Do I think WrestleMania is one of the greatest ones? I have to say some matches were good, great, and I enjoyed it. But um, I have to say this WrestleMania that kind of with the situation happened that kind of threw me off. So I can't say what it is now. But I think that's it. So that's it for what I got right now for WrestleMania. We're gonna still. I'm gonna try to give you guys some good content. I'm still working on the DWZ discussion episodes that I'm gonna do soon. Uh, Stay tuned for that. I'm working on it, and I think that's about it. So hope everybody's staying safe. Wash your hands. So I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye, and have a nice day. Bang.